Serious question. If you have ever come across the fictional superhero Wolverine, you know the character is able to regenerate his body, and because of this, he never really gets old, as his body keeps regenerating him back to his prime. If I was to ask you, how far away do you think modern medicine is from technology that enables you to do this? How would you answer? Most people, myself included, would likely answer at least decades, possibly centuries. But what if I told you we are all very wrong? What I'm about to show you is concerning a very real breakthrough in the field of life extension medicine. A breakthrough that means bodily regeneration and significant life extension is likely just around the corner, and I say that with no exaggeration. This breakthrough is centered around the newly discovered fact that infusing an old body with young blood causes the older body to show significant signs of regeneration and extends lifespan by a startling amount. This breakthrough is so profound that in the few short years after its discovery, we already have multiple companies set up offering various therapies and medicines attempting to offer commercially viable regeneration and longevity. Some of these therapies are actually accessible to regular people such as you and me. These immensely exciting developments were ignited by the revisitation and then development of a series of mouse studies utilising the controversial and gory practice of parabiosis. For those of you not versed on what parabiosis is, imagine you want to know with a high degree of certainty what compounds do within the body. For example, you want to know with a high degree of certainty what a hormone you suspect is related to obesity actually does. One highly effective way you could do this is to find an obese person that has a high volume of these hormones circulating in their blood and attach the obese person to a slim person. If you find that the slim person does in fact become obese, now they too have a concentration of those hormones in their blood, you can be fairly sure that that hormone is likely involved in obesity in some way. That example is actually real. This was actually done, and it is responsible for understanding how the hormone leptin is involved in obesity. If it was not for parabiosis experiments, we would not understand that obesity is actually driven by a hormonal imbalance, and is not simply a case of being weak-willed. Parabiosis then is the quite literal stitching together of two people so they become artificial Siamese twins, which now share blood circulation. By sharing blood circulation, I mean their circulatory systems are surgically connected and then the two bodies are stitched back together. The two bodies now share a bloodstream. What happens in person A's blood now happens in person B's blood. This undeniably brutal procedure, unfortunately for the mice, rats and axolotls that have to go through it, is very effective at producing important medical results, such as the important medical results at the heart of this breakthrough discovery, where the original researchers stitched an old mouse to a young mouse and studied its ability to recover from injury against old mice that were attached to other old mice. The results of the original study showed one thing incredibly clear. Something about circulating an old body with young blood causes significant signs of reversing aging. A statement from an interview given to popsci.com with one of the current researchers regarding the results of these studies perfectly encapsulates why there is so much excitement around these new findings. Infused with the blood from young mice, old ones heal faster, move quicker, think better, remember more. The experiments reverse almost every indicator of aging the teams have probed so far. It fixes signs of heart failure, improves bone healing, regrows pancreatic cells, and speeds spinal cord repair. Then, in the follow-up studies recently completed in 2021, we now have the proof of significant life extension. Regeneration effects like these have never been observed before under any other circumstance. If there was any chance of discovering the secret to indefinite life extension in our lifetime, this really could be it. The concluding remarks of the 2021 study give us the actual date in weeks that the parabiosis experiments extended the life of the older mice. To conclude, our results indicate that biological age and molecular damage can be systematically reversed in a sustained manner following exposure to young circulation, and opens exciting new avenues for research on parabiosis and its derivatives for organismal rejuvenation. The old, treated mice lived an average of 6 weeks longer than the old controls. Their body composition was improved, they had less fat mass and maintained muscle mass. While the death rate for the mice involved in the parabiosis experiments is obviously high, I'd be very interested in reading your thoughts in the comments on whether the ends justify the means with experiments of this nature. People don't seem to care because it's just mice, but would you be comfortable knowing these experiments are being done with people? They're not, but for the purpose of extending everybody's lives, should some of us be subject to these experiments? Personally, I think the ends do justify the means when studying topics of high consequence like this. However, I can freely admit I feel a sadness and a shame knowing that this knowledge was gained through what I can only imagine is immense suffering. However, morality aside, the price has been paid, the knowledge has been discovered, the studies are published, and the wheels are now in motion. Young mouse blood makes old mice younger, so naturally, the follow-up question is, does this work in people? Obviously, nobody is volunteering for human parabiosis experiments. Not that they would be legal, so the next best procedure is a simple blood transfusion of an older person's blood with young blood. However, blood transfusions for the purpose of private experimental life extension experiments aren't exactly legal either, due to the high demand for donated blood from hospitals. So the next best option is the transfusion of blood plasma sourced from young people's donated blood that is not needed by the hospitals. Blood plasma, as a quick biology 101, for those of us that forgot our high school lessons, is the clear liquid that makes up the majority of blood and carries the red and white blood cells, the fluids, hormones, nutrients and proteins all around the body. Plasma also, and this is important, plasma also carries the waste products of cellular activity. If anything was directly responsible for the rejuvenating effects seen, it is likely something within the plasma. So this is where the research in humans has begun to focus. Cue the rapid creation of multiple biotech startups attempting to capitalize on the breakthrough discoveries of the parabiosis experiments. Multiple very well-funded biotech labs have emerged to take the experiments even further and begin to isolate the exact compounds in young blood responsible for the rejuvenating effects observed. Numerous players have settled in the space with their own unique strategies to refine the effects into commercially viable products. A number of them you can approach today and use the services they are offering. The race for the very real fountain of youth has officially begun. To further cement the significance of this potentially reality-altering new industry, the familiar sight of billionaire venture capitalists are making their presence in the space known. Billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk, one of the first investors in Facebook, along with an endless accolade of incredibly lucrative and socially important ventures, has taken a notable public interest in this proposition of extending life and wellness through blood transfusions. In an interview with Inc.com, Peter Thiel states, "I am looking into the parabiosis stuff, which I think is really interesting. This is where they did the young blood into older mouse and found that it had a massive rejuvenating effect." He is rumoured by Gawker to be spending $40,000 every 3 months on blood transfusions from 18-year-olds, a rumour that prompted a scene in hit TV show Silicon Valley. Naturally, Thiel has not confirmed the validity of this rumour. Considering his personal war with Gawker, I wouldn't necessarily believe this to be true. However, what is clear is that he is aware and clearly very interested in how this new field develops. So why is this important to you? Well, Usually when these proven titans of industry like Peter Thiel begin to make moves, big cultural changes tend to follow in their wake. Cultural changes that massively shape the backdrop of your life, from the phone in your hand or the computer you're watching this from. These billionaires, love them or hate them, are one of the main reasons these things become widespread. So hopefully, you are paying attention to what they get up to and positioning yourself to be ahead of this curve when it inevitably arrives. Before we all get too excited and start rounding up the youth to drain them of their blood, we need to know how viable this really is in humans. And to begin to answer this question, we need to look at a controversial US biotech startup known as Ambrosia Plasma, who were the first company to publicly start offering teenage blood plasma for experimental transfusions. Ambrosia offered their procedure for the low price of $8,000 a pop, originally under the guise of a clinical study you paid to be a participant in. The results of this study still haven't been published 5 years later, but CEO Stanford medical doctor Jesse Karmazin claims very significant results. After a scuffle with the FDA in 2019 over administering medicines that had a lack of evidence showing clinical benefit, resulting in a temporary closure, Ambrosia has reopened and have been back in operation since mid-2020, quietly offering off-label transfusions of blood plasma derived from young people for the same price as before, but without the pay-to-play clinical trial cover story. Which means if you have the money, you can access their services today. To further muddy the waters surrounding this already secretive operation, since their brush with the FDA, and since adopting this off-label use strategy, Karmazin and Ambrosia are not allowed to market young blood plasma as a medical treatment, as any medicine prescribed for off-label use has not yet been approved by the FDA as safe for that purpose, hence the term off-label. Doctors can prescribe it, but they cannot promote it, which means until young blood plasma transfusions get approved for anti-aging use by the FDA, Ambrosia Plasma, or any company in this space, cannot legally discuss any benefits the therapy might elicit when used for this purpose. So all we have to go on are the few claims made in interviews by Karmazin when discussing the results of his original trials. If, however, we are to believe his claims, then we all have a huge amount to get excited about. According to the CEO of Ambrosia, there is serious evidence that these simple plasma transfusions may hold at least some of the keys to potentially reversing degenerative ailments such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, the likes of which we have not yet seen in any field of medicine. To quote Karmazin from an interview he gave with liveforever.club, he states, "Single plasma transfusions resulted in statistically significant improvements in biomarkers related to Alzheimer's disease, cancer, inflammation, and stem cells. The main results claimed were the reduction of two age and death-related compounds known as CEA, associated with heavy smoking and colorectal cancer, and amyloid, a protein well documented as being involved in Alzheimer's. With most significantly of all, one patient being reported to have had such a significant improvement in cognitive function that it returned them below the threshold of an Alzheimer's diagnosis, which for the early days of a developing tech fraught with regulatory hurdles, a reversal of an Alzheimer's diagnosis is a seriously promising result if it can be proven and replicated. However, until those results are published and peer-reviewed, we may only be hearing the sales pitch of a business owner trying to flog his wares. But there have since been lots more animal studies that would suggest his claims are likely true. Either way, we have one, albeit pricey, offering to begin testing this phenomena in humans, and so far, it looks promising. So while Ambrosia is offering their treatments of young blood plasma infusions, other approaches have risen to the occasion to offer their attempts at producing life extension effects on par with the parabiosis experiments. One promising attempt was brought forth by biotech company Elevian, headed up by Harvard professor Dr. Amy Wages, whose research expanded on the studies by proving that there is actually a component in young blood that contains rejuvenating properties. Wages and her team have isolated a particular protein in young blood called growth differentiation factor 11, or GDF11 for short. She and her team noticed that old mice injected with GDF11 reproduced the effects found in the parabiosis studies. Notably, that heart, brain, and skeletal tissue had regenerated. Further studies they published showed that GDF11 boosted the growth of new blood vessels and neurons in the brain of older mice and improved two markers of vitality: average exercise endurance and grip strength. This finding is really significant because if GDF11 can be proven to replicate the regeneration effects in people without the need for transfusions or parabiosis, we are looking at a commercially viable and easy to use medicine that will likely be able to purchase in a store rather than needing medical professionals to administer it. In which case, widespread access to a regenerative medicine would likely follow, meaning people struggling with old age or inflammatory issues might soon be able to access something that provides real relief and enables them to live better for longer. Other scientists attempting to replicate Elevian's findings have noted that there have been issues in replicating the results, likely owing to the complexity of the myriad interactions the GDF11 protein has with blood, indicating that there is a lot still to be uncovered regarding this potentially miracle protein treatment. However, Elevian are pushing forward with scaling up the production of GDF11 for further trials that are currently underway as we speak. It goes without saying that if Elevian manage to perfect this medicine, in the coming years we might have our first significant victor of this new race for the longevity breakthrough. So we have Ambrosia and their transfusion clinics, we have Elevian and their miracle protein treatment. Beyond them we also have another biotech firm focusing on utilizing blood-based compounds to treat ailments and extend lifespan. The research company is known as Alkhahest, and they are focusing specifically on what they are calling Chronokines, or proteins that increase or decrease with age. Their belief being, if they increase or decrease the levels of these Chronokines, they will be able to influence the body's ability to regenerate and influence the aging process. They are currently running trials on patients with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Their initial results presented at a neuroscience conference in 2021 detailed the results from their stage 2 human trials with Parkinson's disease. For context, a stage 2 trial is more focused on the safety of an experimental compound, and is not focused on producing the effects required. However, even from their stage 2 study, Alkhahest is quoted as stating on their website that the compound they are focusing on, GRF6021, demonstrated positive effects on cognitive endpoints and was safe and well tolerated by study participants. This means that there are positive results already being observed, and so far the medicine they are developing is safe in humans. Finally, and most interesting of all in my opinion, we have the FDA approved and accessible to almost everyone therapy of TPE, or Therapeutic Plasma Exchange, wherein some of your blood is drained from your body, filtered through a machine called an apheresis machine, which removes your blood plasma and then replaces it with a synthetic form of blood plasma made up of 95% saline solution and 5% albumin, which is then reintroduced into your body. In the most simple sense, TPE in essence removes your old blood plasma that had potentially been accumulating excessive inflammatory compounds that are contributing to accelerated aging and inflammatory issues, and replaces it with a perfectly safe, clean alternative. While this process doesn't directly extend your life as far as we know at the moment, it is now observed that by simply reducing some of the junk that has been building up in your old blood, you may promote some of the rejuvenating effects seen in the parabiosis experiments. So while we know for a fact that there is a profound rejuvenating effect found when transfusing older mouse blood with younger mouse blood, one of the main theories developing suspects that some of the rejuvenating effects is likely due to inflammatory waste elements needlessly building up within your blood plasma being removed, which is particularly interesting for people suffering with inflammatory disorders or chronically poor health. You may be able in the near future or if you have the money for it in the immediate future, be able to get your blood clean through private TPE sessions. I'll read a quote from a recent recipient of TPE who posted an excellent review of the experience, which was so good I've linked it in the video description below. And I highly recommend anyone interested in this topic read into the direct experience of getting off-label TPE explicitly for life extension. In the morning, I wake up with enthusiasm like a child. My mind feels both still and ready like a park sports car. Song and I enjoy a relaxed breakfast before diving into our work. Our next several days are rich in focus and largely devoid of stress. Song remains free of body aches, brain fog, allergies, migraines, and the other forms of suffering she regularly endures. I find myself taking dance breaks during the day, definitely younger me behaviour. I also catch myself wiggling my fingers, like a piano player sitting down to perform a concerto. I feel like I've been wearing gloves for the last decade and my hands are suddenly free. What's very clear from this anecdotal report is that the author and his wife experienced a significant reduction in long-standing inflammatory issues immediately after receiving TPE, and those effects were sustained long-term. Again, immensely promising considering this therapy is actually accessible for most people, and while I cannot through the medium of YouTube make recommendations or advise, a simple Google search will tell you what you need to know if that proposition interests you. From what I've discovered, it won't cost you $8,000 a time either. I don't know about you, but personally, I'm very excited to try TPE the moment I can access it. As these various research teams refine these practices into increasingly more effective procedures, with such seriously impressive results already being reported, it gives me very real hope that meaningful life extension is going to happen in our lifetimes, and maybe it is right around the corner. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on what we've discussed in the video in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, I would be immensely grateful for a like and subscribe. Thank you.